Good afternoon, New York, and the rest of our listeners around the globe. My name is June Stoyer, and I'm the host of the Organic View radio show. Our podcast is available on iTunes, Zune, and you can also visit our website at www.theorganicview.com. If you'd like to be on the show or would like to find out about sponsorship opportunities, please contact us at questions@theorganicview.com. Today's show is sponsored by coronatools.com, the nation's leader in garden and landscaping tools. Listeners of the Organic View can receive 20% off their coronatools.com purchase by using the coupon code ORGVIEW. That's ORGVIEW. For more promotional offers, please visit our website at www.theorganicview.com. And don't forget to check out our contest section.
Last week, Tom and I talked about the latest news concerning Dicamba drift and the fact that 4 states are pushing for a ban. On today's show, Tom and I are going to continue the Dicamba discussion along with commercial beekeeper Richard Coy, who will be joining us from Arkansas. First, I'd like to welcome to the show my co-host, Colorado beekeeper Mr. Tom Theobald. Hello, Tom.
Hello, June, from another cool, rainy day in Colorado, and I've got a fire going in the wood stove, and it's real cozy, so I'm ready to engage in a conversation.
Thank you, Tom. And our guest today, Mr. Richard Coy. Mr. Coy, thank you so much. I really appreciate the fact that you're taking time out of your very busy schedule. I know this is the heart of the honey season for you.
Yes, thanks for having me, June. This is the part of our harvest. So our honey crop has already been made, so to speak, and now we are harvesting what the bees have collected.
Can you tell us more about your operation, how long you've been a beekeeper, and what your company does?
Okay, well, to start off, I am harvesting my 26th crop. I am 45 years old, so I started full-time beekeeping at the age of 19. I was a part-time beekeeper since the 6th grade. So this is a family business. I am the 3rd generation, and I now have my 2 sons that are involved, so we are a 4-generation beekeeping company. We operate our hives in Mississippi, Arkansas, Missouri, and we also send bees to California for almond pollination. At the time, we are managing 13,000 hives, and this is the most hives we have had since I've been beekeeping. Last year we had 12,000, and this year we were able to increase to 13,000.
Wow.
We have our beehives. Our beehives are predominantly in the Mississippi River Delta, so we are in the southern 2 counties of Missouri, which would be considered the Missouri Boot Heel, and we run all the way south into the delta of the state of Mississippi. That's where we place our bees for summer honey production. And then early spring, we have several hives on the Gulf Coast of Mississippi that we are running for honey production. Plus, we make all of our increases in South Mississippi, where we typically make 6,000 to 7,000 splits every year. And we also raise queens for commercial sale, and we also raise 5-frame newts that we sell. So it keeps us busy, and like I said, this is my 26th crop, so I've seen a lot of things.
Mr. Coy, when you first began to have issues, could you describe what you were seeing and where you were and how you began to realize that there was a problem?
Well, I would have to start with what we typically do in the springtime. So after we get our splits established in South Mississippi and make sure all of them are queen right, we start shipping them north to our locations in the Mississippi River Delta. And so that typically takes place during the month of May. After we get those hives on locations, we feed them, give them their mite treatment, add second stories so the population can build, and then it's typically the middle of June when it's time to put honey supers on. In the past, those hives have grown in population by the middle of June, and they are crowded and ready for boxes. This year, we realized our population was not growing at the same rate as in the past, and I just assumed that it was a weather problem. We had a lot of rain, and the crops were delayed, and some of the vegetation was ahead of schedule due to the warm spring, and other vegetation was lagging behind. And that's what it appeared to me, so I just said we should give the beehives some more time. But as time went on, I realized the hives weren't growing at the rate that they should, and so I started a more in-depth investigation and realized that there was a significant decrease in pollen coming into the beehives. It was at that point that I went to other locations that were typically better. They were farther south in our region, and those locations had an abundance of pollen and had already produced 80 to 90 pounds of honey. So I knew I had a significant problem. I just was trying to figure out what that problem was. At the same time, I'd been hearing a lot about the Dicamba drift problems, and I had seen damage in the soybean fields, and it piqued my curiosity. So I started looking at the wild vegetation that we depend on for nectar and pollen sources, and I noticed that the vegetation was not producing any blooms. So I had an inclination that this was some effect of Dicamba use. So I got on the internet and I Googled Dicamba effects on pollinators and found an article that was written in 2015 from a research study done at Penn State University. And as I read the abstract, I realized I was seeing with my own eyes what this research paper was talking about. This research paper states that if Dicamba is used in a widespread area, that pollinator habitat and pollination visits by pollinators will be reduced by 50%. And I was seeing being played out in front of me what that research paper had proven.
Richard, I have a question, and it has to do with Roundup. Roundup has been a leading technology now for quite some time, and I'm wondering what distinguishes damage from Dicamba from what might occur from Roundup, because Roundup would have the same sort of effect, wouldn't it? Why the damage with Dicamba?
So I'm a beekeeper and I'm not a chemist, but with my dealings with agriculture and beekeeping, I've noticed that Roundup primarily kills grass, and it causes the vegetation to turn yellow as it is killing the vegetation. Dicamba, it is my understanding, does not kill grass. It kills broadleaf vegetation. It does not kill grass. And what I was seeing in the vegetation was grassy areas were undamaged, and the other vegetation, which would be broadleaf vegetation, had apparent damage symptomology that looked like the symptomology on the soybeans. So the leaves would pucker and give the same type of symptoms that the soybeans that were damaged were showing.
Thank you. I think that really helps to explain it. I read an account that said that millions of acres have been damaged. Is that an exaggeration, or do you think that's fairly accurate?
I believe that is accurate. I also believe there are more acres damaged than have been reported.
So we could be seeing even more millions of acres.
Well, I'm not going to speculate on the amount of acres that have been damaged, but I do know that not every damaged field was reported because not every farmer wants to get the regulators involved.
Sure, I understand.
Have you heard from any other large-scale beekeepers in regards to problems that they're experiencing?
The only beekeepers that I've heard from are beekeepers in my local area. One particular beekeeper owns 1,500 hives, and he has seen some of the same yield reduction that I'm seeing. But this area is the only area that I've spoken with beekeepers that have noticed any problems.
I'm just curious, financially, how do you overcome something like this? Is there any type of recourse through crop insurance or anything like that when something of this magnitude happens?
The only way I know to recoup from this problem financially is to try again next year and hope for the best. There is no insurance policy that will cover my loss, and there's really no way for me to prove what has happened. And all I can tell you is what I've visually seen and what regulators from my state have verified.
Wow, that's pretty grim. I mean, it's I don't even know how to describe my thoughts right now, because just listening to you, there's no other business that I know of in the world where if you sustain damages of this magnitude, there's no recourse. This really is just terrible.
It sounds like the farmers are up in arms.
Yes, the farmers are up in arms. I try to stay out of the farmers' business. The farmers allow me to place my hives on their land. In return, I enhance their crops with the pollination that the bees provide, and I give them honey as a rent payment. As far as the farmers are concerned, I know that they are upset and that none of this was intentional, and they are trying to find the same answers that I'm looking for. Why did this happen, and how can we keep it from happening in the future?
This is a new subject to me, Richard, but from what I've read, it seems that the volatilization of dicamba is the thing that makes the difference, that it will, if the temperature warms, it will volatilize and drift with the wind. Do you have any understanding of what's going on here with that regard?
Well, I do not have any more understanding of that issue probably than you. I have attended some meetings, and the weed scientists here in Arkansas have explained their experiments and their results. And so it appears that under certain conditions that it does volatilize.
Considering this very difficult situation that you're in and that you're dealing with, what are you going to do in the future? How do you move on from this?
Well, at this point, we are trying to determine our future business model. We have the ability to raise package bees. We have the ability to raise several thousand 5-frame nukes. And we are trying to determine how we can maintain our number of colonies and stay in business by supplementing our honey production income by selling bees throughout the spring and early summer. So this is a fluid situation, and we are just trying to, right now, get the honey crop harvested and see how bad the losses are. And I can tell you they are somewhere between 40 and 50%. And so when we get finished with this season and see how the health of the bees are, we can make more determinations on the future. But we have to look forward. We can't give up. And so we're just, as my brother has told me many times, my brother that's in business with me, we created this monster and now we have to feed it. So we have to just keep going and do our best.
Well, I think part of the solution to this, and we have to solve these problems, is for people to understand. And, you know, as a fellow beekeeper, I wish you well feeding the monster. I've been there myself.
Yes, it's not easy. And, you know, my family depends on me. My brother and his family depend on him. We have the fourth generation now, and we have 20 employees. And so I've explained to people, this is not a hobby. This is not my sideline. This is my life. And it's very hard to go harvest a crop that you know should be one. It's very hard to go and harvest your crop when you know what it could be and you realize what it is.
What is evident to a lot of people in this country is that beekeeping on the scale that you're doing it is one of the last refuges of family farming. I mean, you've got 3 and 4 generations, and I have many friends that are in the same situation. They're 2nd, 3rd, and 4th generation. This is family farming. It just happens to be beekeeping as the livestock, but this is family farming, and we need to do everything we can to save it.
That's right, Tom. And I wrestled with this subject several nights. That I called the regulatory people and informed them of what I was seeing. And it got to the point that I wanted to be able to tell my grandchildren, yes, we used to keep bees over here, and your grandpa did the best he could to save this area. And if I had said nothing, then my grandchildren would probably not even know that we used to keep bees in that area. So it's very disturbing to me. I hope that we can get a handle on the situation. The farmers need technology. I understand that. I've been pro-farmer my entire beekeeping career. We rely on each other, and we have to work together. And so there has to be a common ground here and a solution, and hopefully we can come to an agreement of what has to be done.
Well, Mr. Coy, thank you so much for taking the time into your schedule to join us today. And Tom, thank you also for participating in today's show.
You're welcome, June, and thank you, Richard. I know how hectic harvest time can be, and I thank you for taking the time to talk to us.
All right. Thank you, Tom, and thank you, June, for having me, and I hope y'all have a good rest of the week.
Thank you. And folks, please check out the companion article, which will appear on theorganicview.com. Thank you for tuning in. This has been June Stoyer with the Organic View Radio Show. Have a great afternoon.